All right, welcome back to Vintage Pop. It's episode 11. We're on our second movie of our Stallone episode, and it's we're going to meet Cobra. He does the job nobody wants.
Marion Cobretti. This is probably my favorite Stallone movie.
Really? You would go that far?
I would go that far. It's like this movie was made by Vikings on a lot of coke, and just it's my first experience with it was memorable. So I think I was 11. It was on. I was at a friend's birthday party. We rented it. I believe we watched it along with Space Camp, which is a hell of a double feature.
Cobra's probably the better one.
Cobra's definitely the better one. Space Camp's not good, but I remember it freaked out some of the kids. Such a bananas movie. So, do you know the history of how this ended up
to happen? Like the movie?
So, do you know Stallone's connection to Beverly Hills Cop?
No, so I didn't know that. I was going to go a different direction.
So apparently they originally tried to get Stallone for Beverly Hills Cop, and he rewrote it to make it gritty. He changed the character name to Alex Cobretti, and the studio's like, yeah, we're not doing this, and they threw him off it. And then he went and made Cobra from what he was trying to make Beverly Hills Cop into. What were you going to
So at the time, have you ever seen the documentary Electric Boogaloo?
Yes, about Cannon.
Yeah. So Menahem Golan, the guy who was Golan and Globus, who owned Cannon, they were trying to get Stallone. They were trying to get a big actor to come to Cannon and make movies for them. You know, a lot of their early stuff was like people whose careers were kind of petering out. Like I know Faye Dunaway did like The Wicked Lady after like Mommy Dearest flopped.
Okay.
They picked up Franco Nero for like Enter the Ninja and stuff like that, and you know, and then their own homegrown talent like Dudikoff, and you know, even Jean-Claude Van Damme got his start with Cannon.
Right.
But Stallone was the first person, big time actor that they got to come on to Cannon Films, and I believe the contract was for about $36 million that they got him for. They said that he was going to be contracted to make 3 movies, Cobra being one, Over the Top.
Which was the next one.
Which was actually directed by Golan. And then there was a third that never happened because...
Over the Top tanked so hard?
No, just because Cannon kind of folded in the 90s. Okay. I think Cliffhanger is the unofficial third Cannon...
I saw that in the theater.
That was, what, 94?
93.
So that sounds about right. Probably that would have been something that Cannon might have made, but I think Cliffhanger could have been a Cannon movie. I mean, if Cannon was still around.
Cliffhanger's not that trashy, though, the way it turned out.
There's some good Cannon movies, though, that just
there are.
did not turn out to be trashy, though.
Sure.
And they tried their hand at doing, like, some art films and stuff like that, too.
They did a lot of movies.
They had, like, Godard for some stuff. They had, and then we talked about Barfly, which is a great movie.
That's Cannon, yeah.
Yeah, so... But go ahead.
I was going to say, where were you going to go?
No, that's all I was going to say about the whole Cannon thing.
So if you don't know the plot of Cobra, Cobra's like if you took Rambo and put him in a Dirty Harry movie.
It really is.
It's like the wet dream of some like mid-'80s conservative gun nut.
It seems like something that we all would like if we were like kids or like in college sitting around one night like drinking beers and going like, what would be the best cop movie? And you go, okay, what do you think? All right, we give Sylvester Stallone. You're like with a chalkboard and you're like, all right, we got Sylvester Stallone, Los Angeles. Okay, Los Angeles. He's a cop on the edge. Perfect. Get the guy from Hellraiser who's the dad to be like crappy to him.
Well, they get 2 guys from Dirty Harry in this.
Remy Santoni, who is the first partner in.
It
had just dawned on me for the second Dirty Harry thing that you're about to say.
Yeah, Andrew Robinson.
Yeah, who was the Scorpio killer.
The bad guy. And actually, apparently in the original script, he was going to be a member, he was going to be the main bad guy.
That would have worked. So so Stallone is Marion Cobretti, a cop who doesn't follow the rules. Yeah.
And just he's part of the zombie squad. They take care of the jobs no one else wants. And it opens up with a guy who goes into a supermarket and just decides he'll start shooting stuff. They destroy so much stuff in this movie. Just scenes of things breaking, not just the violence, just him shooting into soda cans.
But that whole sequence basically is like gets you up to speed that how cool Cobretti is.
Sure,
because basically you have this guy who the 2 police captain. Excuse me. the two police, I guess they're captains or whatever their superiors are.
Yeah.
The guy, Andrew Robinson, and then the other guy. Now, Andrew Robinson hates Cobra, but I'll tell you what, the other guy seems to have no problem with Cobra.
No, he begrudgingly allows him to do whatever.
Yeah, like basically there's this thing that's going down at a supermarket, and he just like offhandedly just goes, call the Cobra.
The Cobra. Oh, and the movie opens up with him reading off crime statistics and shooting at the audience. The movie shoots at you.
It's got to make sure you're paying attention to those stats.
Oh, make sure right away.
Crime is a disease, and he's the cure.
He drops so many one-liners just in that opening scene. My favorite is when he's talking to the guy the guy's basically holding people hostage in his supermarket for God knows why. There's no real reason.
I think he must have loosely been connected to that thing.
Yeah, he says something about the New Order, so he's connected to the bad guys, who we'll talk about later. But so Stallone says, he talks about shooting out the place, and Stallone says, I don't care, I don't shop here.
Yeah, go ahead, blow it up, I don't shop here.
He says such dumb stuff. I wrote down some of it. This is my favorite dumb line. Hey, dirtbag, you're a lousy shot. I don't like lousy shots. As a cop, shouldn't you like lousy shots? Because then they won't shoot you.
The best part of that whole line is that he basically pulls the intercom for the the supermarket. Like, instead of going like, attention Kmart shoppers, he's basically just like, hey, dirtbag.
There's so much product placement in this movie. There's Pepsi's everywhere. He takes a drink out of a beer.
That is the best part of it. That shows you right there that Sylvester Stallone as Cobra is not the person to mess with, because he takes a matchstick out of his mouth, cracks a Coors, and then drinks it, and then throws it as a decoy for the guy to shoot with his shotgun.
He wrecks so much stuff. So much stuff gets wrecked. So later in the movie, we get introduced to our bad guys, which I'm going to say, these are hands down the best bad guys since Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark, you got Nazis. How are you going to not hate Nazis? How about axe-wielding, possibly satanic?
I was about to say, are they like satanic?
They never say, but it feels satanic to me. Axe-wielding bikers.
Yeah.
Like how can you get on board with that? They're not quite white supremacists because they seem to hate everybody.
I think they call the main guy like the Night Stalker.
Night Slasher.
Okay.
That's what you want to call it.
He's been in some other crap.
He is the bad guy in Fright Night 2. You ever seen Fright Night 2?
No, I haven't even seen Fright Night 1.
Here's a controversial statement, and Dan Richmond's going to hate me for this, but I'm going to say Fright Night 2 is better than Fright Night 1.
I cannot say. I haven't seen either.
Oh,
I have Fright Night on Laserdisc.
Oh, you should watch it.
Yeah.
They're fun. But yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff, but that's the one thing I noticed him the most from, because I rewatched that recently. So also his partner, Rini Santoni, do you know what else he's in besides Dirty Harry?
Bad Boys?
Seinfeld. He's Poppy.
Oh my God.
He's the one who pees the couch. And it's only a few years later.
Yeah. You ever seen Bad Boys though? Sean Penn?
Yeah,
it's a prison
we talked
movie.
about that last week.
Yeah,
that's a great prison movie.
He plays like a warden type person, but like he's got like the kid's best intentions.
So if we're talking stars, Bridget Nielsen, you can't not mention.
Well, they were married at that point.
I think they were dating.
Well, yeah, I think you have Rocky 5.
4.
That
she's shoved into 4 as Draco's wife, or is she?
I think it is his wife. She does say my husband, I think.
But she also is like his promoter, right?
She's his Don King / spouse.
There you go. So we have Bridget Nielsen in there, just kind of looking pretty and just following.
I think that's the best she's ever looked in a movie.
Do you know the guy? So the scene where she's with the photographer, the blonde guy.
Yeah.
Do you know who he is?
No.
David Rash.
I've heard the name.
He was on a show in the mid-'80s called Sledgehammer, which is a parody of like Dirty Harry and these kind of movies where he plays the main character.
Is the cop's name Sledgehammer?
Yes.
That's horrifying.
And he's in love with his gun, and it's really broad, and it lasted 2 seasons. You should check it out on the YouTubes as it was. Oh, something that they don't follow through on in this movie. Did you notice that this is a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Early on in the movie, it's obvious.
There's a Toys R Us ad when he uses scissors to cut a slice of pizza.
So okay, but by the end, they seem to have dropped it. So there's an interesting thing about the history of this. So the original cut of this was 2 hours, and the movie that came out the week before Cobra was Top Gun, and Top Gun was huge. So they're like, oh crap, we're going to have to compete with this. What are we going to do? So they cut a half hour out of the movie so it will run an extra
more showtime.
Yes. And it did end up being #1 that week. So I looked. It came out the same day. Cobra was released the same day as Poltergeist 2.
I'd rather go see Cobra.
Yeah.
Even though
like
Poltergeist 2 is an okay movie, but I think I'd have still been at Cobra.
Yeah, so they were both number 1, number 2 at the box office that week. Although, like 2 weeks afterwards, Top Gun was number 1 again because that movie was gangbusters. But yeah, so they chopped out a lot of content out of the movie at the last minute.
So do you have this on Blu-ray?
No, I have I have a DVD, and my DVD is so old. How old is it?
Is it a snapper case?
Yes, it's a snapper case, which are the early DVDs. Also, the special features, most of them are text only.
Character bios.
Yeah, and talking about his car. So we got to mention his car in it. He has a customized 1950 Mercury.
Yeah.
Which is actually Stallone's car.
And the plate says Awesome 50.
Yes, because it's 1950.
Yeah.
And I love the line at the end where they're like, so Cobra, we'll do whatever you want and give you a better assignment. He goes, I'd like you to pay me for my car. And he goes, well, we'd like to, but we can't. Which is such a weird detail. I love the car chase scene.
Oh yeah,
I think that's one of the best of the 80s.
You talking when I also like when he's on the back of that truck when he's got like that
the
Mac
action
10.
scenes in this movie are
top notch.
Yeah, they're really great. But that car chase scene I think is one of the best of the period.
The soundtrack is pretty good too.
Pretty good.
It's really good.
What do you really like Miami Sound Machine?
Suave when he rips the dude's shirt off and he's like, clean up your act.
Okay.
Robert Tepper, who's old boy from Rocky IV, does "There's No Easy Way Out." He also sings "Angel of the City" in Cobra.
Wow,
that's the whole montage with the photography with Brigitte Nielsen.
This movie has hella a lot of montages,
and him and Remy Santoni are like going around tattoo parlors so to see if they can find like some generic ass skull tattoo that this cult has.
I did watch. They have some of the deleted scenes on YouTube, but they're all like there's none of the, a lot of gore got removed from the movie too, so it got cut for an R rating. But because it's kind of like a slasher movie. It has a little bit. A lot of people comment that there's chase scenes in a hospital. It reminds people of Halloween too.
A little bit.
But it is a little slashery. But apparently it took a lot of that gore out. But I saw some of the scenes that were like television scenes and things like that.
Oh, that's right, because they would shoot extra scenes for TV.
Yes. Yeah, so they have that. That's on YouTube, so you can check those out. They're not good quality, but there's different plot points.
The woman who is his like number 2, who is like winds up, who's in the police, who like
you're talking about the bad guy.
Yeah, she's like his woman, and they also she also happens to be in the police force.
You mean she's Night Slasher's girlfriend?
Yeah, she's Night Slasher's lady.
I don't know if that's definite.
I don't know. I mean, you don't see any like public displays of affection.
They don't go shopping for duvets.
Yeah, they don't go to IKEA. But I mean, she kind of looks like she's got a little bit of a pull on him at one point though, where she's just like talking about how she's gonna mess up the world order or whatever. That
okay.
But she also is the waitress. And I noticed this. Psycho 3 and Psycho 2 works at the diner that Norman Bates works at.
Oh my gosh, I did not notice that.
Also, for a second, have you ever seen what's that movie? I always Sudden Impact.
Yeah, I watched that recently.
Does she remind you a little bit of like that dirty lady that like was friends with all of those? That
maybe a little bit.
I thought it was her at first.
Yeah, you can see where you think.
I kept all week. I've been looking up Sudden Impact, and I keep typing in Deep Impact, and I get like that Morgan Freeman movie from like the 90s.
It's a very different movie.
But what I really want is Sudden Impact, which is probably, even though directed by Clint Eastwood, probably the sleazier of the Dirty Harry movies.
Yeah, probably, but definitely with the plot.
Yeah,
it's not my favorite.
It's
well, Dirty Harry's always gonna be.
That's the most 80s of them, though. I mean, Deadpool is terrible.
I like Deadpool,
but we could talk about that another time.
Sure. I like Deadpool though. Trying to think what else I want to bring up for this one. I mean, it's such a fun movie.
It's definitely like really, really good VHS. Like, I mean, I have the VHS copy of it, and that's how I watch it from like a video store when I was like growing up. But it's definitely one of those movies, like, and you saw it at a sleepover growing up. It's one of those movies like, hey, do you want to see a really like down and out, like kick-ass, like action movie? Like Cobra is that movie.
Right. I'm surprised they never made a sequel.
I don't know how that would have worked.
You could just
another person.
Or more, he missed a few bikers. And
like fast forward 2 years later, Cobra's still like on the zombie squad.
Sure,
we check in
do
with
all
Cobra.
Kinds of things with it, or just have another group of crazies, or have Nazis. Have Nazis in L.A. in the late 80s.
That could have worked.
That would have worked.
You got to get like you'd have to get like a Henry Rollins type person to play like the.
If you had Henry Rollins in that period, he would have been bananas.
Yeah.
Late 80s Henry.
Yeah, and he didn't act much until the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
He was in Sons of Anarchy, that's why it made me think of him. He played a Nazi in
he did.
He was a neo-Nazi in Sons of Anarchy in like season 2.
He attacks Peg Bundy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a bad dude in that movie.
He is.
So yeah, Cobra. Yeah,
it's like it's not objectively better movie than Nighthawks, but
no,
it's
a more fun movie. Nighthawks obviously the better made of the two movies.
Get a crowd of people, get a gigantic bucket of popcorn.
Yeah, and I think that's one of we do movie nights here every now and then. Definitely in 1984 is more towards Halloween time. For the last couple of years, we played a couple horror movie things. But if we were ever to do an action movie night, I think Cobra would be a good fit.
Oh, another thing I wanted to comment. I remember Ebert had reviewed it at the time, but I couldn't find an Ebert review.
He probably said terrible things.
No, he did not like it, if I remember correctly. But I remember a comment he made about some of the settings for these action movies. So in the end of this movie, at the end of Cobra, you end up in that factory.
Yeah.
He said it looked like a factories where they just made fire. That's what the factory at the end of Cobra reminded me of. It's just, what are they making in that place?
It must be like, it reminded me of the refinery from Terminator 2.
Or RoboCop.
Oh yeah,
RoboCop takes place in just one of those mysterious.
But that's like a completely abandoned factory in RoboCop.
But this one's running, and there's sparks in places where there shouldn't be.
They make sparks and fire and villains.
It's ridiculous.
One thing like you said about like Ebert and even like Siskel to a degree, I never I get that they're critics and they have to go like, okay, like this is bad. Don't they ever like fun though? Like you ever just sit down and go like, okay, the movie is trash. But
Ebert loosened up sometimes.
But it's a great time.
I think Siskel was less of one to loosen up, and maybe that was more of them at the time trying to think about parents and kids seeing that, because they actually thought this stuff was damaging. I mean, I was the kids they were worried about because I was sneaking these movies.
Well, even slasher movies and stuff, like they hated slasher movies.
They really did.
They reviewed Extra. And I mean, not a slasher movie, but also like a really trashy horror film,
which you've never seen.
I've been trying to.
I keep telling you, it's awful.
I know it's, but like I mean, it's. I gotta see it.
It's not even fun. It's hard. I know the descriptions sound like it
and then you see the trailer of it, and you're like, "This has to be crazy."
It's such a dud.
You get like this great synth like vibe on it.
It ruins everything. Every moment is just wrong.
I know it's supposed to be like super gross, but
it is gross. But it's weirdly unenjoyable. But no, I think at the time they were trying to be watching out for kids.
Yeah.
And us kids all just watched these movies, and we're fine now, I guess.
I've never used an axe on anything other than a piece of wood.
I've never used an axe.
Yeah, so see, I mean, there you go. All right, well, we'll take one final break. We'll come back, we'll wrap everything up, and then we'll get out of here. So we'll be right back.